Well, this is a lovely way for me to spend an afternoon. I know it's different times of the day where you guys are. Thank you, Damien. It's early doors for you. Jared, welcome along. Thanks for being here.
Thank you again. Thank you. I mean, it means a lot that your interest and your appreciation for this movie means a lot to us.
Yeah, well, it means a lot to me now having watched it. It's just really stayed with me. Where did for people, I obviously know a fair bit about from diving into the story after watching it and researching, but for people listening, Brave the Dark is the film. Where did this true story, how did it arrive in your, you know, in your life, really?
Um, I basically Nate and his friend John Spencer wrote a script. They wanted to tell his story. He'd been telling his story in public. And he decided to write a script in about 2012. And the producer Grant Bradley was at one of these forums when Nate was telling his story and found out there was a script, and so he optioned it. Um, and then as weird things happened in the world, he had also optioned our stepfather, his Jonathan Aitken, who wrote a book called Porridge and Passion or something, Porridge and about his time in prison.
Hmm.
And Jonathan said, if you're ever in LA, look up my brother, which he did. And then through that, Grant sent me the script. And as I was saying, I was very moved by it. And so I came on board. There had been a couple of other drafts done in between after Nate's script. But I gave it to Jared because Jared and I kind of share scripts, and Jamie, just to get initially just get feedback on the characters, etc. And we spoke
Yeah, it
about
wasn't for me to be in it. It was just
no.
Really?
Yeah, no, it was
no,
just to
it
get,
was just
how better to get an idea of a character's working or what the take on a character is by giving it to somebody
Yeah.
who's a really good actor. And I think Jared went off to do Carnival Row, and I set out to do a rewrite of the script. And by the time he'd finished, I gave him back the script, and we talked about that. And at that point, we had a sales agent on board, and Sharon Oble was out. So they were very excited to have Jared come on board and play Stan. And then, of course, as those movies go, you think we're about to make the film, and then COVID happened, and so it took us about 3 years
Oh,
to get to Lancaster, and with many false starts. And in between, I'd met Nate himself,
yeah.
and which then proceeded to have another draft of the script. But we finally kind of gave the producers an ultimatum that we had to make this movie now. And it just happened to be at a time when the community decided to come together
Hmm.
and pay for the film themselves.
That's
And so
extraordinary.
we all trucked down to Lancaster,
Lancaster.
Pennsylvania to start
New
on
Holland.
New Holland was where the school was.
Yeah,
Wow.
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
What
to make the movie.
I loved how you kind of originally, though, I think when the story came to you, or you at least sort of read it, that you were teasing Nate that he'd written a Dickens novel, that the kind of epic nature of the story. But when it's your own story, I guess there's a tendency, you're putting everything in it. You're putting your entire being and experience into that.
It was, and he had a lot to tell. And by the way, it was
Mm.
all good stuff. I mean, it was literally going from the age of about 4 years old up to when he graduated high school. And there was a whole movie in his life at this orphanage.
Yeah.
And there had been a whole period, part of the script too, which is his relationship with his father and his mother and what he's witnessing. But when I read it, I thought actually the thing that I responded most to was the relationship between Stan and Nate,
Mm.
and really and discovering as Stan does, as kind of Nate did himself, really what had happened between his parents, you know.
Yeah, Nate
Um,
said that um, it wasn't until he was somewhere safe that he was with Stan
Oh,
and had a room of his own that he started to have dreams and started to remember what had happened.
wow.
so the film then became a mystery as well.
Mm.
So it was some kind of it was like two genres in a sense. It had the story of the evolution of the relationship between Stan and Nate, plus this mystery about what was it that happened in Nate's history.
Well, it's told so brilliantly the way that the character that Nate has kind of almost, through the trauma, it's kind of built up walls and kind of almost interpretations of what he went through until he finds, like you say, someone who can help him kind of unlock that for the right reasons that are
Right.
really helpful to him for, for his future and for him to survive and for him to be able to have a life. It's just, yeah, it's amazing to watch. It's really
I think
And
powerful.
you
that was something
misdoubt you
Jared
not.
focused
Go
on.
ahead.
He focused on wanting the pushing to find out what had happened to Nate.
I think it must make you doubt yourself into such a elemental sense if he was told from the age of 4 onwards that something that he experienced and witnessed viscerally, literally viscerally, didn't happen.
Mm.
And that there was this other version of it that happened that his grandparents kept on telling him, no, this is what happened, that didn't happen, this is what happened. And even though he had a strong sense of what it was, he was called a liar, and essentially gaslit. And I'm sure for maybe out of what they thought were best intentions, because they didn't know how to deal with it any other way.
Mm.
But it would completely fracture your entire sense of self.
Yeah. Jared, what was the thing that convinced you that you wanted to take on and take on this role of Stan? It's such a beautiful performance, by the way. What I imagine you had, I don't know, you get a sense of real joy in taking on this role.
It was good fun. It was fun being in his shoes. And he's so relentlessly positive. I found that quite difficult. But yeah, it was when you start to imagine that having this attitude all the time, what an insane amount of energy it required. And I listened to lots of hours of tapes, and they made a movie about him, a documentary. So his last year at the school. So I watched that as well. No, when Damon sent it to me, I was to read it because it was quite a big sort of sprawling epic, as Damon mentioned. And is there a movie here?
Mm.
So it was really that, and I read it and I went, wow, if you focus it down in the way that Damon was focused it down, would be a really powerful film. I remember being moved by it at certain times in the script, reading it and having a very strong emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen very often. And I think, that's someone who's like ringing a bell there and going, if this came your way, you should jump on board. I didn't. I mean, I think initially I won't say who, but they went to somebody else, and it didn't work out. So I was delighted when it came. It came my way.
Things happen for a reason, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you're right because I mean, I was in bits at various points through watching it, and part of that is through, the hard times that Nate's going through, but it's also the joyful times as well. So you kind of, it's not always that you connect emotionally with both sides of those emotions of a character, but you really do, and I think that that's testament to the script, in terms of how it's written, but also those performances, and I think the kind of fragility of Nicholas's performance as well was just brilliant.
Yeah, it's definitely because he definitely is. What was really interesting, he was 20, I think he was 19 or 20 when he did the movie, and he'd been on board with Jared for like 3 years at least, and he'd been in the movie the Stephen King film,
Hmm.
and he's Australian, so he had no idea about American high schools and who these
Wow.
characters were. He'd never heard of like Matt Dillon and Sean Penn. So I had to sit him down and give him do a film festival of all the 80s high school films and all these 80s actors who
Oh, what a
played.
treat.
Yeah, so we could watch all these films to say, no, this is actually who he wants to be, because that's who Nate thinks. That's who Nate's pretending to be.
Yeah.
Really, inside, he's not. He's something much
And
more.
getting away with it.
Yeah, and getting away with it.
Yeah. People believe he's that. He's the cool guy at school
Yeah.
with
What
the
was
hot girlfriend. Yeah.
yeah. The I love as well the commitment you had to, you mentioned Lancaster County and you didn't have to go there to embed yourself in the real community to do it, but you did. And that must have kind of, I don't know, what did it give to do you think, in terms of so many different elements, I
Everywhere you
imagine?
went, you met somebody who knew Stan and who had either they'd been taught by him or their children had been taught by him. And I mean, I remember we went for that first supper at that restaurant in Lancaster. I forgot what it's called. And the waiter knew Stan, and we would, what are you guys doing here? We told him, and he looked at me and went, "You got some big shoes to fill, pal." Hang on one sec. You guys
That's
carry
usually
on.
the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's when
yeah.
you're telling the waiter, "Okay, good luck, pal, if you want to be an actor."
It's almost like an over kind of like just so much information, I imagine, about this character. Everybody had a story to tell about him.
They did, and um, the it was. I mean, the community came together to finance the film based on the fact that that he was a local hero, and
Yeah.
secondly because Nate was now was a part of that community who turned out successfully. He'd basically lived with Stan. He'd gotten a job, and he was working at a theater company and was married, and he was sort of he was in his own way a success story. And there was others when I was another time I was location hunting. I was staying at a hotel in Lancaster. The manager found out what we were doing, and he had exactly the same experience that Nate had, but like 10 years later, had been suicidal and never heard of Stan, but had been given his phone number, and he called Stan up and said, I'm really fragile." And Stan said, "Come on over, let's go driving." He hated, there's a couple of things that he didn't like to cook. So that scene of Jared cooking pastas now actually act factual. He liked to go out and eat every night. And
Wow.
so he would take this guy out and put him pasta. And basically the guy lived on his sofa for 18 months to get himself turned around, and then
Amazing.
his life was turned around.
Where do you think his kind of positivity and this particularly kind of just wonderful, inspiring outlook on life came from?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously it was part of his personality. I think that I mean, it sounds trite to say that he just had a really big heart, but
Yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah.
And um, I think it also came from the joy he got as a teacher, and that what he understood his role as a teacher was to inspire. Um, Probably less about teaching and more about inspiring. And you certainly see that because his sort of main way that he would see somebody who was there's a little bit of this in the movie. There's the football player who's damaged his knee, and his
Yeah.
idea of pursuing whatever dreams he had of football are over, and he can see the boy's spirit is slowly being crushed. So he casts him in a role in the play, and that was something that Stan did quite a lot. He'd see someone who was being ostracized, who was on the fringes, and he would cast them deliberately in the play, put them in a part that would have the kids shine in front of the whole school, and it would change their entire life at the school and the whole experience. So I think it's sort of to do with that was that and I think he loved that the idea of transforming someone's opportunities, and I think it came from that. And of course, his own desire to be an actor, and I think that he got a lot of satisfaction from the you know the responses that he got from that they got from that, but it made him. I think it put a spotlight on him in a way that sort of he got a bit of a buzz, at the same buzz that he got from being an actor. You know, I mean, he was the biggest personality in the school. And some of the teachers would resent the fact that the students loved him so much.
Yeah. You filmed in the school as well, didn't you? In the actual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Garden Spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine it's slightly different from when he taught there, but there must have been quite a lot that was still the same.
Yeah,
That was his jacket. That was his first night, and the jacket that he's wearing in the theatre. They actually have a case in the theatre with Stan's jacket, and it's sort of permanently on display. And we got them to lend it to us so that we could wear it for that scene. Yeah.
Were you the same size as him then? That's quite,
I was then. I'm a lot thinner now.
Well, Stan, he was somebody. The donuts was true, and then he was then told by Nate, you got to start working out, and we've got to do something about this. He said, right, fine, I'm going to go every morning. He'd go walk for 3 miles, but with his little bag of donuts.
Donuts. Yeah.
How lovely though that then, he gets to the point where Nate's looking after him in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like that's lovely to know that that he had that in later life and in later years, sort of thing.
That's very true. And
well, that was Damian's one of his sort of concepts of molding the script, and trying to find the arrow, the spine of the story that would take you through it. The theme of it was these two people who were creating a family together,
yeah,
and that they both had lost their families, and they form a new one together.
Yeah,
and that was the idea that you put in the credit thing at the end, the what do you call that, the chyron at the end, that Stan and that Nate takes Stan's name.
Yeah, because Nate would, every time he was taken on by a foster family, he'd end up changing his name. So the name he had at school was actually the name that he'd had from the last foster family.
Okay.
So he'd actually it'd been changed 3 times. So final time he changed it was for Stan, to have Stan's name, which he did.
Yeah. And how was the shoot? Talk to me a little bit about, about the kind of, the how quickly or how long was the shoot in terms of, did you?
It was a tough one. I mean, films are expensive. Even small, low budget movies are expensive. So we only had 25 days to make the film, and it's quite a wordy film, and it was also spread out. It wasn't really in one location. So we really had to sort of gun it. We were helped a lot by Jared and Nick coming a month ahead of time to rehearse and get familiar with the town, and then the 3 of us rehearse. So which is really unusual and incredibly helpful. And we had a very good DP, Julio McCat, and Joe McDougall was the first AD, who were really experienced. So it went as well as it could, given how it should have been twice the amount of time and money.
Yeah.
But you do what you can with what you're given, and it was helped a lot by because you don't think about it, but it's a period film. The mid 80s is a period movie, so it's a period film twice, because it's also the early 70s and the mid 80s, and so everything has to be looked at. All the cars have to be, you have to get them from whoever's got a old car collection and everything. And we were just so there was a guy who had an old car collection who sort of
Mm.
would give us 6 or 8 cars to have in the background, and people pulled together. So we got a lot from the community itself.
And another thing that kind of is kind of within the realms of that is the music, in terms of the diegetic music that we hear,
Yeah,
like the kids playing in the car and stuff. And then you've got the score as well that Jacob and Rowan did for
yeah.
you. And so
Ryan Jacob.
yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of that was that written into the script, those particular tracks, or kind of,
Yes.
navigating that side of thing. I know it can be an expensive part of the journey.
It is.
But
I did. Yeah, I'd like to create a playlist when I'm writing,
yeah.
which is both with other film scores and soundtracks. So like the replacement song was in the script because I just felt that was so a song that Nate would have, and the same with the Flock of Seagulls song. We had like Stan was a big Barbara Streisand fan, so I
Yeah.
did have a Barbara Streisand song, which
Couldn't
we
afford
just
it.
could not afford. So we ended up with Doris Day. And I had I had a Doobie Brothers song for the 1973, which is one of my favorites, South City Midnight Lady. But again, we couldn't, so we got the Harry Chapin song.
Yeah.
So I had an idea in the script. I pinpointed what I wanted in terms of the scenes, especially diegetic.
Mm.
Um, but then the reality is I mean, Barbara Streisand would have been a quarter of our budget.
Like she needs the money as well. Do you know what I mean? I
Exactly.
like when I hear about artists like Michael Stipe is one that comes up time and time again, who will literally just give you his music because he wants, particularly if you're, independent filmmakers or some, he wants to help, he wants to support art and culture, and so I always like, yeah, I find it like so like, come on, how much is enough? It's kind of, do you know
It's
what I
true,
mean?
but it all depends on who owns the publishing.
Exactly.
So if he owns the publishing, he can do that.
Yeah.
That's often not the case anymore.
Yeah.
You'll get the performing rights. You can get a deal from them, but not the publishing.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
was
we
his?
got we got a little bit of help from Nancy Sinatra, didn't we?
Did we?
Oh, that was the other movie. Sorry. Shit. I just
Jared,
remember
if you
talking
told
to
us at
Nancy.
the time, we could have had a Sinatra song in there.
I just remember talk. Sorry, because I remember talking to Nancy Sinatra, but that was oh, no, that was our documentary.
It's another
But
one.
going back though, I want to say because Damien missed something there about the challenges of making the movie because we had so short a time. He and it's quite well disguised in the movie, but it's kind of a series of oneers,
Yeah.
with like options of how to break up the runner if you didn't get it in one. And it's really incredibly well disguised because it doesn't feel like that. So
Yeah.
I mean he was had to be really economical and very specific in the way that he used the camera, and he didn't have the thing that they do where you just shoot hose down coverage of all four walls and just you know then make your mind up in the editing room. He had to
Yeah.
really make the movie in his imagination beforehand.
And
So I
it's
think it's a great challenge to have. And actually, but sometimes when you're pushed into a corner, the options become actually the best and the most exciting. But I think also working with Jared, it was really helpful because literally we'd go to rehearse a scene and then he'd say, okay, so if I stand here and I do the scene here and here, how long will that take you to light? And I said, well, if you do it there, it'll take us 15. If you do it over there, it'll take us 45. He said, okay, I'm going to do it here. So it was incredibly helpful.
I love that. It's great teamwork. It's
Teamwork.
like, yeah. And also
That was
experience.
my Mad Men days of learning. Yeah, because in that one, the directors had no power at all, and they just had to shoot massive amount of coverage in every direction, and you just knew how much time it would take to turn it. It's like 45 minutes to turn the camera in a different direction and shoot a whole new wall.
Oh my
You know,
God. What are
yeah.
you doing that 45 minutes?
Well, we didn't have that on this one, but
Yeah. Yeah.
normally you play games, or have a nap or something,
Sing some Streisand. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And what about the score though, Damien? What was the kind of, that journey of finding out how that would work across, like you say, across decades, but then also across the story and in between these needle drops.
So, I mean, I had like the sort of, I had like Nicholas Brittle and, I, I, I had scores from other movies that I put on my playlist
Yeah.
when I was writing. Um, but there then becomes the economy of it too, and then the availability. And so with Rowan and Jacob, it was just it was the editor and the assistant editor Toby Yates and the assistant editor Tom Piller. They had heard on the grapevine about these two composers who had just done this basketball documentary,
Hmm.
and it had been highly recommended. So I got the soundtrack to that, and it was this mixture because they both have uh, they have sort of different had different musical paths that were coming together, and that was you could see that in their individual albums. But they had created something really strong, I thought, in this basketball documentary, and it's very powerful,
Hmm.
and actually it was unlike anything that was on my playlist of the other soundtracks.
Yeah.
So I sent them the script first of all, and just talked to them about the movie before I showed them the film, and so then they came on board, and then we kind of mapped out what the really sort of what the narrative of the score would be for the film, and they had their own studio. We just spent a lot of time in their studio as they tried things out, and at one point there was going to be a woman's voice singing. We tried that out. We decided not to do it, but actually
Yeah.
the music had already bedded for that was really good, and so that worked. And we had time, as long as
Yeah.
they had time. There was no release date, so we could really perfect what the score was. They did a great job. But then
Mm.
the end song, Nicholas himself is a singer. I mean, he started off as a singer in Australia.
Did he?
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, "Do you want to do the end song?" And he was
Oh.
doing an album. And I said, put your 80s music hat on. I mean, write a song, make it really 80s.
All these
You
films I've
know,
made you watch, all these people, it's like
yeah, so
embrace
now
it
you get
all.
a chance for the soundtrack. So he went Go-Go's, and so he wrote a song in the start of the Go-Go's, and actually got Belinda Carlisle to come in and sing the chorus, and so he
Wow.
he did the end song.
That's
Uh,
brilliant.
yeah, it was.
You've done your own stand for him. You've given, you know what I mean, in terms of kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
true.
yeah, totally. That's amazing. I think that I don't know if it's something that you think about or, maybe at the stage where, the film is now kind of that opportunity of audiences watching it and kind of thinking about what audiences might take away from it, and just the conversation we had before we started today in terms of how it's really stayed with me and how almost kind of we could do with more stands in the world, in terms of just that positivity and just trying to do good for people, kindness and decency. And I wonder if you do think about what your hope is for the film in terms of, the takeaway for audiences.
Obviously, we want people to see it. We knew when we went on the festival circuit that it was responding with audiences because we won quite a
Yeah,
few
we won
audience
loads of
awards.
audience awards.
So we could see
Yeah.
it, and then them talking to us afterwards, and especially to Nate. And it was, the fantastic thing about that was because Nate, the whole point of the movie, that is that nobody ever listens. He never gets to tell his story to anybody other than in the final scene to Jared and to Jamie in that hospital room.
Mm.
The first time he's got to tell a story. Well, now he's telling it. The movie's playing, so essentially he's telling his story to like 500 strangers, and they're hearing it for the first time. It was incredibly moving for him. Each screening was like he was being beaten up by the end of it. I mean, he was very emotionally moved. And you could tell there was a connection between the audience and the film. And it's just getting people to see it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
how do you get people to take the time to watch the movie that actually is incredibly involving and very
Yeah.
emotional? And that's my wish for it,
Yeah.
is that, as I said at the beginning, it's a film about a hero, but it's not a hero that we recognize in our culture. You might not think this is an incredibly ordinary man who's just a teacher in a small school in a state that nobody really knows about, in a town in America. And yet he's an extraordinary character and hero.
You gotta cross Pennsylvania off your list, bro.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, now they won the Super Bowl. Maybe they went like that.
Did you take anything away from it, Jared, by playing this character?
I mean, it's a lesson that I haven't learned, which is the, you know, you're going to get closer to what you want by being through charm and through positivity rather than through kind of conflict, because I argue a lot, and and my brain is wired slightly differently, so I can see something, I can construct an argument about why it should be in a certain way, and argue doesn't mean that it's necessarily fractious.
Yeah.
But it's something that I noticed, when we were on Chernobyl, and there'd be questions that I'd bring up about the script, and after a while, the writer was fed up with me having questions and suggesting that maybe we could get to where we want to get to this way, and I noticed that there was this rewrite that the scene came in, and I'd already made some points about it, things that didn't make sense for stuff from before, this, that, and he said to Stellan, Stellan, what do you think? He goes, it's great, I love it, it's fantastic, I think it's the best thing I've ever read, it's great, I love it. I go, oh, thank you so much. He goes, I have one or two suggestions, man. He go, oh yeah, please do. Yeah, whatever you think. I was like, yeah, that's how you do it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
that's how you do it. You start with smothering them with praise, and then go, yeah, just one thing,
tiny little, detail. Yeah. That's an amazing score. Hilda's score for Chernobyl is just amazing. Yeah. One of my favorites. Absolutely.
That was a fantastic score.
And no, the only instrument in the whole soundtrack was the human voice. Otherwise, she went and recorded the sounds that a reactor makes, and then used those sounds to create music.
Yeah, she's extraordinary creator. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been so lovely to get to talk about this really powerful little film, and this wonderful man, these wonderful men actually, and this brilliant community that supported you and helped make this film possible. So yeah, that's a lovely thing to celebrate, and so I hope many people will go and see it, and I'll shout about it as far and wide as I possibly can to try and encourage them to. And I look forward to what's next, Damian and Jared. I'm looking forward to House of Dynamite as well. Which
well,
put it see next week, I think.
You forget about sleeping for a week after you see that movie. Yeah.
I'll come back to Stan after that then, I think. Yeah. Thank you both for your time, and take care, and congratulations on the film. Thank you.